All right, everyone, welcome back to the Coyote Radio Show and Podcast. We got a great guest today. Well, we got two great guests today, actually. We got Blackjack right here. Can't really see him. He's super hidden. The light's not really hitting him, but our good co-pilot, Blackjack the cat's here. And we got Reverend Peyton from the Big Damn Band is joining us, which is amazing. I've been a fan for a long time, seen them perform several times. And if you haven't seen them, go check them out. It's more of an experience than anything else. Talent levels there, all that stuff. You know, it's just a good time. You got Washboard Breezy over there catching shit on fire, Reverend sliding around on 5 to 10 different guitars at once. It seems like then someone's in the back beating on a bucket. So it's a hell of a time. Definitely go see them live. And but before we talk to them, I gotta say, very thrilled to go ahead and here I got the poster right here. Got a bad glare on it, but our Pickin in the Backwoods Music Festival is this August 16th and 17th. 2 days, 20 bands. Your ticket pretty much covers everything. The parking, the primitive camping. It's bring your own beer, grab a long chair, bring your own cooler, all that good stuff. We want everyone to have a good time and enjoy themselves. The tickets are going to be well under 1,000. We want people to be there to listen to the music and enjoy it instead of going to a music festival where there's 20,000 people screaming and craziness going on where you can't even enjoy the music, what you're there for in the first place. So tickets are in the link in the description below. So grab those and got to give a shout out to our sponsors, Bar Distillery down there in Kentucky. Makes a hell of a bourbon, some of the best out there. And our other sponsor, Duke's Indie, which is helping me put this festival together. And it's been a lot of fun. If you're in Duke's Indie, it's the best honky tonk in the Midwest. You can actually ask for some of the Bard's drinks there. They got some of the top shelf stuff. Cinder and Smoke. It's one of my favorites. Just get a classic, get you a classic mixer there and have a good time. Enjoy some music. But I think that covers it. We're gonna go talk to Reverend and see what he's got to say. All right, welcome back to the Coyote Radio Show and Podcast. We got a great guest today. This is a long time coming.
It's a long time coming. I'm glad that we're finally able to make this happen. This is great.
Yes, Mr. Reverend Peyton and the Big Damn Band. Man, I've wanted you on here for a long time. There's so many. We probably don't even have enough time in one podcast. So I'm already gonna go ahead and ask you on the air, on the spot, so that way you can't back out later.
Right.
But I would like to have you back on later down the road to just go in depth about blues music in general, because it's fascinating. Like the history, if you're a folk music, if you like folk music and blues music and all that, it's just like, it's amazing. And obviously that's where a lot of your inspiration is drawn from.
Absolutely. Blues is the roots of it all, right? And people don't realize this, but I'm talking all American music, whether you're talking country, bluegrass, none of it exists without blues. And a lot of times people are sort of, I don't know, I don't want to say ignorant of it, but they're uneducated. Let's say that they're uneducated of that fact. And there are a ton of things that are now thought of as commonplace in, say, country music that are born of African music. And people will say, well, how's that possible? Well, how's it possible is the United States of America was and continues to be this wild ass melting pot of music. And there was a strong African influence across the board. My hero, it goes back to a fellow named Charlie Patton. And Charlie Patton is really kind of the beginning of the concept of, well, there's low culture and high culture in terms of like music and the arts, right? Mm-hmm. High culture is kind of like the opera, the symphony, trained musicians. And low culture is usually thought of as folk musicians, these musicians that are untrained, or at least not formally trained, right? That's generally what is kind of, when you sort of discuss these things with a scholar, that's how they kind of go
Right.
about it. Well, in the past, the high culture musicians were the ones that could be paid. They had paid gigs. They traveled. They were hired by symphonies or orchestras or operas or uh, what have you. And then the folk culture, the low culture, the folk musicians, they just played on their porch, right? They didn't have the idea of playing this kind of music for a living was well, it's within the last 100 years, and one of the places it starts is with a fellow by the name of Charlie Patton. He was born on a plantation in the Mississippi Delta with no road going to it. All right. And you think, well, how's that possible? Well, we live in a world where, uh, with a short memory, we kind of forget that it wasn't that long ago. My
No.
great granddad, grew up in a southern Indiana without regular roads. You know, he
Right.
he he wrote about the interstates coming and changing the world. When my great granddad, so just my granddad's dad, his childhood was without cars. It was horses. And it wasn't because they were poor, it was because cars hadn't been invented yet. Cars weren't a thing until he was about my age and my age now. And he lived half of his life in a world without cars. And that's my granddad's dad. We're not
Yeah.
talking about history here. We're talking about
It's
the
so
person
close,
that,
but so far.
yeah, we're talking about the person that my dad, knew as a child, went to, Christmas with. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
This is not ancient history. So Charlie Patton was born on a plantation in the Mississippi Delta with no roads going to it. And he was able to travel around and have a actual career, right? He had an actual he made his living by playing music. And how did he do it? Well, he made records, but they didn't make money. They didn't make money. But records don't make money anymore either, but they didn't make money back then. So he literally made his living by showing up places and people throwing pennies and nickels and dimes at him, or playing on only Saturday night. There was only one night of the week that they could actually play, at least on the plantation, because people were forced to work essentially 6.5 days. So they only got a half day off. So Saturday night was the night where you could relax a little bit.
Right.
And how that worked was he would travel from plantation to plantation. The word of mouth would say, "Hey, Charlie Patton's coming." People that wanted to come would show up to a place, and there'd be cooking in the back, and people would be passing around bootleg liquor and whatnot, and then Charlie would be playing in the front, right? And sometimes there was a little bit of a cover charge maybe for that, or people would just tip. And in his day, he played a Gibson in a hard case, which even for musicians now is not the easiest thing to do. In fact, a brand new Gibson case, but he was able to do that. And by some accounts, it depends on who you ask and who you talk to. But I have heard firsthand from people that say for a short time he actually had his own car. All right. Now, when you start going back to this sort of this stuff, my whole point was to link it up to a lot of different genres. So
Yeah.
I'll get to my point.
No, no, this is great. No, I always said we were gonna save like the blues lesson for a whole other episode. It doesn't even matter anymore. This is
this,
already
this
great.
is a quick one. This is a quick one. This is a
No, I
quick one.
love it. I love it.
So
Keep talking to me though, because I'm gonna grab something while you're talking.
all right. So Charlie, he was so influential that when you ask someone like Muddy Waters or Howlin' Wolf or Pop Staples or pretty much anybody that are heroes of blues music, we know where they learned to play or what, who inspired them, they all said they just wanted to be him, right? Well,
Yeah.
Hank Sr., all right, Hank Sr., Hank Jr.'s dad, Hank Sr. learned to play the guitar from a disciple of Charlie Patton. Charlie Patton's influence was so widespread at the time that it's almost immeasurable. And his music is somewhat lost to time. We sort of are more familiar with Robert Johnson, thought of as like a very early blues artist. Well, Robert Johnson was actually a generation later. but it's because
Right.
Charlie's recordings were rough. They were raw, you know,
Yeah.
and blues music is born in a lot of ways from, uh, we talk, you know, of course, obviously African music, West African particularly, and the banjo itself is a West African instrument. And that a lot of what's done in country blues guitar is actually sort of, you can draw that lineage straight back to the banjo, the gourd
Right.
style open tune banjo. So you know, anyway, like there's this all sort of has influenced itself. And anytime someone, I'm going to get a little bit into the discussion of like music theory. So if you're not a, you know, a musician, I'll try not to bore you, but whenever you hear someone flat the third or flat the seventh, which is done in pretty much all American music, it's constantly done. And that is a West African language you're speaking. Whenever you flat the third to the root in a song, which happens all the time in country music, it's done so much in blues. It's I mean, you almost can't play blues without flatting the third, and it's that is a West African scale. And so anyway, yeah, I love blues. Blues has been my entire life. I started playing the guitar when I was 12. My dad brought home this cheap ass K, and I haven't put it down since, man. He brought that thing. I was an electric guitar with no amp, and he said if I got good, we'd get an amp. So I played this guitar, electric guitar with no amplifier. I mean, just hours and hours. You know, my dad always says, he's like, man, you know, I always hear these people say they played for hours a day. He said, you played 12, 13 hours a day most days. And I did. I mean, I would, and those were school days too. Like I wouldn't sleep. I'd come home, I'd pick it up and I'd play and I'd fall asleep with it. And I'd wake up in the morning and it'd be like, it's time for school. You got to get ready. And I just play as much as I could until it was time for school. And then I would go and I would go over again in the weekends. I would play constantly. I always make this joke that if I wasn't a professional musician, it would almost be a wasted youth because I spent so much time playing that damn guitar. And, you know, I always wondered, I was always afraid, in fact, that I might get burnt out on it. You know,
Yeah.
that I might lose my passion for it. But brother, let me tell you, I am more obsessed with it now than I think I ever have been. And in different ways than I was when I was young. You know, now I sort of chase different things. You know, when I was 12 years old, I'm just trying to learn, you know, and when I got to about 13 or 14, I'm already into blues at this point. You know, I got to blues real early because
Right. Right.
I noticed the link pretty quick, and I'd be like, wow, you know, this sounds like this, and and I would go and listen to, okay, well, who influenced this person? Who influenced this person? We just keep going back and back, and you get to that fella Charlie Patton I was talking about. In terms of recorded music, you know, there were tons of people that influenced Charlie. We just don't have their music on record because Charlie was among the first generation of people that actually recorded music. And interestingly enough, Charlie was born in just like a year apart from my granddad. Depending on my great granddad, I mean, depending on which date of birth you believe, because there's two dates of birth for him, 2 years. We don't know exactly which one is the most true. I think it's probably the earliest one because I think he was lying about his age to say he was younger. So if it's the earlier one, which is what I believe that it was, then he was, I think, a year and a half younger than my great granddad. To sort of, you know, for put that in a timeline for me personally, you know. So
Which
um
would have been what? 19 or
1880
1887.
Yeah, that was
And
yeah,
these are
that was when Charlie was born, 1887.
and his recordings were coming out in 1929.
29, which is the first year he recorded.
Yeah, that's right at
Mhm.
the start
Yep,
as
right at
far
the
as
start.
recording.
And interestingly enough, he recorded his first recordings were made in Richmond, Indiana, in the back of a piano factory and a furniture factory.
Holy
Isn't that
shit.
wild? Yeah. Yeah. And the reason is because, you know, back then a phonograph machine was a big, expensive piece of furniture, right? So the people that made those big, expensive pieces of furniture, you know, if they're going to sell them to you, they needed you to have records that you could spin. So they got in the business of making records, and some of those actually still remain in sort of like been swallowed up by different labels and stuff over time. But some of those technically kind of still exist in some way or form uh, as record labels, but no longer make furniture. If that is kind of an interesting sort of little tidbit about
Yeah.
music. But I when I'm a little kid, I'm obsessed with it, and I just kind of just I just kept studying, going back and back and back, and that was the thing I was obsessed with when I was a kid. Is just kind of absorbing it. I wanted to know everybody's influences. I wanted to be able to play everything I could. I wanted to learn every single thing. I studied as much theory as I could get my hands on, music theory, especially as it linked to blues and jazz, um, with a big influence on blues. And um, I started giving guitar lessons when I was 13. Went and I did that all through high school. I had students. My oldest student was in his 70s, and my youngest was 7. Um, I had played in a lot of bands that were like cover bands where I was like the lead guitar player with all these guys that were adults, and we played. I always call it the animal circuit, but like the moose lodges and elks lodges and things like that.
The
That was kind
animal
of
circuit. Yeah.
yeah. And then I had my own band that was a blues band, and we would we would play any place we could get, and I did that up until I had problems with my hands, and I don't know if through this you can see the scar on my hand. It's like right there, goes down in there. My hands are so calloused and messed up, you probably can't, but
Yeah,
uh,
I can see it.
so
It's very
a
faint, but
scar.
I can see it.
Faint now because I had surgery when I was 19, but from 18 to 19 and not somewhere it was like almost 2 years. I couldn't play the guitar. Um, and I had a doctor tell me, he said, "Son, find something else to do with your life." Um, and that was devastating. That was absolutely devastating to me. I was a lost soul, but I ended up having surgery. I found a doctor who said he thought he could fix it, and he did. And I've learned also to deal with it. I've had similar problems, but I've been able to deal with it. I have a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. See how much I can that
Oh
thumb.
God, stop.
All my fingers do it. Every one of my fingers bend completely backwards, and I can open my hand. It's hard to tell probably through
Look
the
at
screen.
that.
I can open my hand up. In fact, I've never met anybody that can open their hand up as wide as me.
That's
Never.
wild, man.
I can almost make my pointer and pinky fingers straight. By opening up, I can make them a 90, go just a straight line across. And um, but that is a superpower, but it also comes with some problems too. So I'm prone to cysts because your tendons aren't really supposed to do that. And Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a collagen problem. So I supplement with a lot of collagen, and I strength train. I do everything I can to try to keep this condition from, destroying me. And so that it remains a superpower and not a disability, because it's been, it teeters on the edge. When I was a kid, it was more like a disability, and it's taken me a lifetime to kind of get it under control, and I have to do a lot of stuff with it, and every now and then it still, causes me problems, and it's there. But I'm fortunate though. I don't want to, there's some people that have this condition that it's a spectrum like autism is or anything else, and you end up too far to one side, and there's folks that are in wheelchairs and they're debilitated, and if you're in the middle, a lot of people that are professional musicians and professional athletes are in the middle of the hyper flexibility spectrum. And so I'm probably, teetering toward that side that's bad, but so it's, I have to fight tooth and nail. It's one of the reasons why I'm just kind of obsessed with keeping my muscles and tendons and ligaments strong. And, I supplement collagen pretty heavy. I Once I figured that out, that really, my entire life got better once I
Yeah.
discovered that an important thing to do. Probably everybody should supplement with collagen, but if you are on the hyperflexibility spectrum or have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, then it is imperative. You must do it. You don't have much of a choice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, shit. I mean, it's your livelihood for, especially for you. Make a
Yep.
living with those hands.
It's true, man. I
Care
mean,
of
in
them.
some ways, I'm like a hand athlete. It's kind of funny to think about it because music is always, you think of it more of like, an art that is, so it kind of exists in that sort of, intellectual space, right? And it does, and so much of what music is it comes out of your heart and your soul and your brain, but you translate it with your hands, and your voice and everything else. So it's kind of a strange thing, and then the way we do it, man, too, is like it, me, I like to jump around on stage and that's part of it too, and
Yeah.
that's not new under the sun either. They say Charlie Patton used to throw his guitar up in the air and spin around, catch it, all play behind his head, all that people, Jimi Hendrix didn't invent that, and Charlie probably didn't invent it either. He probably saw someone do it on the vaudeville circuit, or who knows, it's hard to say. Or maybe he did, maybe he never saw anybody do it and he come up with it on his own. But there was a lot of people on the vaudeville circuit at that time, I know, that did that's in the record. People wrote that
Yeah.
down, so we know that happened. But
Right.
it's you know
Do
kind
you,
of fun.
I'm gonna want to stop you right there while we're talking about. Do you feel like you really, I don't know, really showcased and put out there like the importance of blues music and carried on the traditions of some of the early people like Charlie Patton? Do you feel like you've done a good job doing that?
Man, I've tried. I know I've tried. I I've spent a lifetime doing it, and I, I'll tell you this. I've had a lot of people cover my songs, and it gets back to me, sometimes this way. Someone will go, "Man, hey, is that a so and so song?" And I go, "No, that's my song, but they cover it," And they go, "Oh," and it means that when they played my song, they didn't say, "Hey, this is a Reverend Peyton song."
Right.
And now that's okay. By law, they don't have to, but I'm not Eric Clapton. So when someone plays one of my songs, the crowd may not know. You know what I mean? Like I'm not
Right.
quite that household name where they go, "Oh," they play "Poor Until Payday" to the crowd. The crowd may not know that that's my song, right? And maybe they've heard it before, and they hear someone play it and they go, "Oh, that's your song, cool." And you're like, "Nope, that's Reverend Peyton's song." Well, it's the same with Charlie Patton. I think I've always done it. Not just because I think people should know, because they should, but because I think it's the right thing to do. It's what I would want done. So I like to give these fellas props because I think it's just exactly what I would want done when I cover one of his songs, or when people are talking about influences. I want people to know, and it's. I hope that the favors return. When some, because it's happening now all the time. People are coming to me and saying, "Hey, man, I've learned to play this stuff because of you, or I've been studying your stuff forever, or whatever." And I hope that they're out there telling people that. You know what I mean? Because just like Charlie Patton, it's never crossed over into that household name where you know everyone, like Johnny Cash. You hear Johnny Cash song, everyone knows it's Johnny Cash. You don't have to say it, right? Someone
Right.
covers Ring of Fire, they don't have to say, "Hey, I'm going to do a Johnny Cash song right now." Maybe you never heard of him before, but here, yeah, everyone's heard Johnny Cash. Everyone's heard Ring of Fire. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
the same. It's like that, But when you do one of my songs, that may not be the case. I mean, we have a pretty good fan base out there and everything, but it's not like we're definitely, I'm not Beyonce. You know what I mean?
I
And
just had the same conversation with Pete Bernard of The Devil Makes Three,
yeah,
because he was doing a lot of, he did a Doc Watson cover here a couple weeks ago. I was in Austin, Texas, and we were hanging out, and he said that, like when I go up there and do a cover of a song, I let the people know who I'm doing, like because same, just like what you're saying. I mean, it's just you can't go up there and do a song and not give some sort of credit, and act like it's yours or something.
yeah, and then and also too, I think I, I have oh man, there's a lot of people. Blues is one of the worst genres for this, and I'm not sure exactly why, but it may be the worst. where people will do a song and all they do is change the words to an existing song. They haven't changed the music, the melody, the chord progression, anything. And it and then they're like, oh, this song I wrote. And it's like, well, you didn't really write a song. You just put new words to this other song, right? And the music of it is actually the most important part. And there's a lot of people disagree with this. But I think if some of those people are tone deaf, like a song doesn't need words to be a song, right?
Right.
A song only needs music. If it has words, then it's a song that also has lyrics, right? And now, if you have a poem and there's no music to it, it's just a poem, right? So words without music are just a poem, but music without words, still a song, right?
Yeah.
And so that music is very important. And I've learned this through experience. We've played in 38 countries around the world. And a lot of those places we've played, they don't speak much English at all. What I'm up there singing and talking about, they only have maybe a tiny little inkling of it, right? Doesn't matter. They're still losing their mind to the music and jumping around and dancing and having a good time. It's because they're connecting to the emotions they feel and the music that's coming in, right? And those are, those things transcend
Yeah.
lyrics, right?
That's awesome. Yeah, I've known you've no, I don't even know how many times I've seen you in concert, but you've always mentioned like what countries, numerous countries and places you've played, and that just shows you the power of music. Just right there, just like you don't even have to
Man,
know
it's
exactly what
universal.
they're saying.
It's universal, isn't it? I mean, that's one
Yeah.
of the cool things about music is it's a language, right? It's a language. And there are certain rules that um there are certain rules that are kind of exist across genres and across all the regardless of what language you grew up with or what continent you're on even. But then
Right.
there's also little tiny changes, little things like like I talked about that flatted third, right? Well, the third is flatted in a ton of quote world or folk music around the world, but it's flatted in a different way than we do here in America, which is mostly the West African way, right? When they flat thirds in Turkey, it is it's a little bit different. They flat it. They will do that, but the inflection's different. It's not flatted to the same place exactly. It's the same in Indian music. A lot of times the third is flatted, and there's other notes that are played with like in the European scale is just a chromatic 12 notes between the octave, and then some countries will cut it up to 23 frets or more or less, right? And mostly, though, what those are is so they can get to what is sometimes referred to in sort of classical music as microtones or whatnot. But those microtones are essentially they're real notes, they're real places, and a lot of times the inflection vocally that you when you are singing, you will do this without even knowing what you're doing. And the beauty of a stringed instrument is, especially with slide, which is my first love is slide guitar, is no matter how long the string is, the halfway point is always the octave, right? Doesn't matter. We could take a string and run it from here to the moon. Halfway, that's the octave. And the intervals are always the same. So we know that the third is always the same, sort of percentage toward that octave always, right? So once you kind of get your bearing on it, you know exactly where it all is. It's the exact same.
I
And
never thought of it like that. Like the way you just laid it out in my mind, it like makes so much more sense.
oh man, it's caught this cosmic math in this, brother. There's like it goes and it's also infinite, right? I'm not I believe in the cosmic math of it all, but I also am not someone that like there's these people that say, have you ever heard of the 440 versus 452? I think the argument between the scale of what should be A, whether it's 440 or A 452. Have you ever heard this argument?
Yes.
All
And I,
right, so I think it's crap, and I'll tell you why. Because I think that it's infinite. We call A, but that's just an arbitrary thing so that we can be in tune with each other when we're playing together, right? I grew up listening to all these country blues guys that they would get up in the morning and they go and they tune their guitar to whatever their voice was sitting at that day. And I've watched guys do it when I was a kid, and I'm hanging out with guys like Robert Belfour and David Honeyboy Edwards. I was lucky enough to be able to play with these guys when I was nothing to nobody. And I got lucky and just got in with these guys. And they would tune not to a tuner most of the time because they're playing by themselves, and they would just tune to whatever their voice was sitting at. So it didn't matter whether A was 440 or 452 or whatever. That's not it's infinite. A string proves it. You tune. I always tell people, I'm like, a guitar is tuned to whatever you want it to be tuned to. It is not. That don't mean nothing. You tune it to your voice. You know, if you like a song, tune it to whatever key you like singing it in. It doesn't matter. I mean, sometimes a certain song will or a certain guitar will voice a certain key better than others. Like sometimes, like there's certain guitars that just like the key of C or whatever, you know.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that that song is needs to necessarily be that way. That's why I always like to tell people if they're going to learn how to play the guitar or any instrument, really learn Nashville numbers, because in Nashville they're used to people coming in with a song and saying, "Hey, the singer wants to do it in E. It's, you know, it was originally written in D, but you want to do it in E." So you just transcribe it with Nashville numbers. You don't have to think about it. And in my brain, I really think patterns and Nashville numbers. I rarely think about like the actual letter of the note. It's always Nashville numbers. And before I even knew Nashville numbers, before like that was even someone taught me that that was the way that was done. That's the way my brain always thought it. And I also like, this is a weird thing too. I see music in color, so you know,
I've heard
like
you say that before.
notes have color, and I also like I'll a weird thing I do too is like certain notes have certain colors to them, but also like I a song to me, like I'll be like, oh, I'll say to the band like, oh man, this song's too red. I've got to make this song a little more yellow, and they're like, what does that even mean? And I'm like, explain, but let me try to figure it out, you know. And they're like, you are insane, you know. But
Some psychedelics.
yeah, it's all happening in my brain, you know. It's a weird thing, but yeah, I just love music, man. I think it's magical. I've seen it, you know, bridge gaps between people. Music was something that you know, my dad and I always shared. You know, my dad is he's he is and has always been a great guy. But when I was a little kid, you know, I was born with severe hip dysplasia, and you know, I waddled when I walked, and I couldn't really run right, and so I didn't want to mess with sports. I love the outdoors. I love fishing. I loved camping. I loved, you know, going out and hunting and trapping with dad and stuff. But I wasn't really into sports. So my dad was a all-star athlete and you know, physical specimen, you know. So I don't know if he ever really understood that, but once I started playing guitar, man, you know, we had that thing, and you know, it was so even that I always think about music in terms of like it allowed me to be able to even communicate with my own dad better. You know, music has been has saved me more times than I probably even understand. And
Right.
you know, it's you know, and so my dad too. My dad's like they, you might get a kick out of this. My dad's always been such a supporter. My mom too, but like my dad, he'll say like he was always like when I'd be, you know, in high school, and he'd be like, well, you know, you're going to play guitar for a living, so you know, you'd be thinking about, like, he would just literally, like, it was always, to him it was a foregone conclusion, like I was just going to be a professional musician. There was just nothing, you know, about it. And now he says crazy stuff, like he'll save something, I'll go, Dad, why don't you just throw that out? No one cares about that. He'll go, no, 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 we might want that for the museum someday. I'm like, Dad, there's not going to be a Reverend Peyton museum, I promise you. It's not going to happen. But he still thinks it might happen. So
You never
he's
know.
he's my he's my biggest fan. So it it he, you know, also too, you know, you and I have a connection from when I was a kid, because my dad was real into trapping for a time, and he uh went to Hoosier Trapper an awful lot.
Yeah.
When I was a certain age, he drugged me along with him, and it I had a lot of good memories doing that with my dad when I was young.
Yeah, I got lucky. Married married into a good family. I've been over there for over 15 years working at Hoosier Trapper. So it's been good.
Yeah,
It's been fun. Learned a lot and yeah, I love it. Yeah.
that's cool, man. My dad always says like he's a real empathetic, soft-hearted person, and he's always like, yeah, when we were young, we did that. He goes, there was a lot of money in it back in the day, and that's when I needed the money real bad. My dad always did concrete work, and in the winter there was, no work. And if the winter was real bad, it was real bad.
Yeah.
Might go weeks not being able to pour concrete. I was trying to do some concrete work at my house today, and I didn't realize it was going to be getting down as cold as it is. And it's April, and
Yeah.
it's too cold to put some concrete down. I needed to fix some stuff. So here it is April, and if it had been my dad out there working, he wouldn't have been able to work in April. So, that's just uh when times were hard like that, he would do all kinds of stuff to try to make ends meet and get a little extra money. And with trapping, it was sort of a hobby that could also at that time make money. Now it's tough to make money with it. It's more just a
Right.
hobby. But
Yeah. Recreational or nuisance control.
yeah, exactly. But
But
there was a certain period of time where it was actually you could if you did well, you could come out ahead financially and make some serious money. And
yeah.
um, but it's a cool skill. I'm glad I know. I'm always arguing with people. They'll go, oh man, if the things fell apart, I just I could hunt enough food, but I'm going, brother. It takes 6 months. It takes 6 months for all these hillbillies to take every deer out of this woods. I said, no way. And besides, while you're out there hunting, I'm just going to let my snares and traps work while I'm sitting around the fire, just put my hands up like that. Just keep my hand. I'm like a trapper will outlive a hunter 99 times out of 100, 999 times out of 1,000. It
Yeah.
is those traps work, and you set them, you let them do their thing, and you sit back and let them catch you food or whatever you need to do. And it's a cool skill to know how to do, especially if I always think about it in terms of that, in a real push comes to shove survival situation, and you can make a snare out of almost anything. It don't, if you had to, it don't
Yeah.
take. And those snares, they work. They work. It's just a matter of learning what height to set them, how big to make that hole, where to put them. You have to know
Yeah.
where that is going to
Game
walk.
trails and all that. Yeah. I
And
talked to your dad for a long time. Uh, it was a show you did at the Vogue. It was after the show. I was able to sit and chat with your dad for a while just about trapping in the good old days at Hoosier Trapper and all that stuff. It was kind of cool. He was sharing memory lane with me. It was pretty neat.
that's cool, man. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad. I didn't know that. I love that. That's awesome, man. That's cool. We, man, we have a family recipe for trapping fox.
Now
It's
you
a
mentioned this to me.
family trap set, brother, and it is excellent. It makes it easier too. Like all this work people put into it, we got this family secret. Takes about 80% of the work out of it, and it works. But and that's been passed down in our family. And but but now you know what I do? I do this. I set trap sets, and I do it with game cams.
So yeah, you can see what's going on.
Well then I can try to get that animal broadside the camera, and I know I've like marks like, okay, if where he stood, that would have been in my trap. I got him. I got a picture of it. Then I don't have to actually trap him. And but I do I actually do like trap sets and trap recipes, uh, but with a game cam, so I can get pictures of them and still practice to make sure I can still lure in the animals if I need to. But I just get pictures of them instead of actually trapping them. And I've been doing that for years.
It's
Keep
like a
my skill.
it's like a chess game. They make their moves, you make yours. Yeah.
And it's it's a interesting thing too, because there's you can trap anything, right? People don't think about it, but you can trap deer, bear. I mean, anything. You can trap. Everyone knows you can trap a mouse, but you can trap everything from a mouse up to the largest things on the planet if you've got traps or snares big enough. And
Yeah.
it's uh, it's a pretty interesting skill set. It's kind of a lost art in a lot of ways. There's a whole lot of deer hunters out in the woods come firearm season, but there's less people run a trap line these days, and it's a cool skill to know. It's just one I'm glad I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. It's a challenge. I love targeting coyotes because there's just so many, and they normally are the ones causing the most problems with people around,
Hmm.
that have issues with livestock or their dog or cat or whatever the issue may be. But
Oh yeah, a lot of
they're
things.
tough.
Yeah, a lot of things get blamed on foxes and stuff when it's really coyotes the problem.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. If I catch fox, I usually just let it go at this point. They get
Yeah.
enough trouble from the coyotes. I just let them go, let them run.
If I were out trapping, it'd probably be coyotes too, because it's they're like where I'm at right now, man. I mean, we could go out right now and we could listen to 3 or 4 packs of coyotes happening. We could hear them all howling, 3 or 4 different packs of them just from my house. There are tons of them. There's so many of them. I'm starting to see them during the day.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
I live on a private road in Brown County. It's the least populated county in Indiana, and it is, which it. I'm saying that for your listeners. But
yeah.
I've in my of my neighbors, we've lost 4 cats recently, and they're like, oh, maybe they run off, and I just want to be like, no, those are the coyotes that got them. And
Yeah.
the rabbits have been real bad the last couple of years, and I think they're coming in after the rabbits, and just getting opportunistic on a cat,
Yeah,
trying
taking
to.
opportunity. Yeah, they're
That's why my cat is he doesn't get to go outside much because he's big. He's mostly Maine Coon, so he's a monster. But a pack of coyotes, it's real hungry. Just can't take the risk.
oh yeah. My cat's becoming a celebrity.
Yeah. Person, though, that he's the most affable, agreeable, friendly damn cat.
Mine's sleeping over here.
Talking about cats is like I never thought I'd be a person to talk about cats, but my cat is so friendly. Everybody loves him. Like I can pick him up and just carry him around. He's got no problem with it. He wants to be with us all the time. Like he wants to be like up in my face all the time. Like if I sit down, he climbs up. He started doing this thing where he pets my beard when he wants his face petted. So he'll pet my beard, and then I pet his face, and I stop, and he pets my beard, and he does it until he's got enough, and then he'll sit. Craziest thing, man. Breezy finally got a video, trying to video it. But she finally got a video of that damn thing doing that. But yeah, he's Chunkleberry Finn. He's just I just it's crazy how much joy that thing has brought us. We travel so much, we never thought we could have a cat or an animal of any kind. And because of that, I was dead set against it. I'm like, Breezy, we can't have an animal. It will
Yeah,
be that much more headache in our life. We cannot, we can't do it. But during COVID, we moved, but at the place where we were living, and we lived there for a lot of years. It was a little cabin, just still here in Brown County. I just moved across the county, but it was a little cabin. My phone barely worked there, and there was no internet. So the whole world's falling apart, and we would have to drive uptown to download stuff in the parking lot of the library to steal their Wi-Fi because they left it on so kids could come there and do remote school, because most of the county at that time didn't have internet. They've since the last few years there was a government grant that brought in fiber, so now almost everybody's got internet now, and it's the fastest. It's awesome. It's incredible. But back then we didn't. So we're sitting in the library parking lot, downloading stuff and typing and doing emails, and our cat just jumped in the car with us. He jumped through an open window and then would sit on my lap while I would just be on the computer. And I was like, man. So the second day he did it, or third day, I went, he's coming home with us. And Breezy goes, well, we need to find out if make sure he didn't belong to anybody. So we found out that he had been just abandoned by someone. He'd been dumped there. They knew who dumped him and everything. So we said, well, he's ours now. So some friends of ours that lived near the library, they called us up and they said, he's over here right now. We see him. And they said, we can't catch him. And I said, well, he'll come to me. So I drove up and I opened the door and he come running, across their yard, jumped in the car with me, and I waved at him, and they freaked out. They're like, no way that just happened. And then he just rode with me back home. And now it's the same way. He wants to sit on my lap all the time. Like it's funny. He's upstairs with Breezy, or else he'd be down here trying to sit on my lap or walk on the computer or something. He just wants to be
Yeah.
wherever.
Yeah. This one's sleeping over here. Usually it's right here trying to climb in.
It's funny, man. And I was told, like when I was a kid, I was under the impression that cats like were impersonable or were I don't know, unintelligent or just lacked loyalty. And it's all crap. And you start going back into history and you look at some of the great people in like historical figures that had cats, people like Hemingway, for instance. And there's a reason. A cat is actually a much better companion to an artist or a writer or a musician or someone that travels, someone that is not just really a homebody. If you're a farmer or a rancher, a dog is great. But if most of your life is not inside your house, the cat is perfect because a cat can be by itself forever. The cat, we have it set up over here. We've got automatic feeders, we got automatic water fountain, and we have one of those litter boxes that cleans itself. So
litter robot, yeah.
Yeah, we don't technically he could be here for weeks, Now we never do that. If we're gone for an extended period of time, our neighbors who are our best friends, they watch him and they love him. They'd steal him from us if we'd let him. But they're the perfect pet for someone that isn't it isn't basically stuck at home, a homebody, or has a lifestyle that where they're at home all the time. And for us, because we travel all for a living, having that cat has been way easier than I ever thought it would be.
Yeah.
Hates it when we leave. When we start getting the bags packed, oh my God, he starts acting out. That's when he starts knocking stuff off the things. He'll come up and start pushing stuff off. He's mad. He don't want us to leave, and it's so funny to see how an animal would react like that. I mean, what an emotion to have. He's upset that we're leaving. He doesn't know how to communicate that he's upset. And then he's going to miss us. It's like, wow, he has a longing for us. And that's a very complex emotion that I never, when I was a kid, I was under the impression that cats didn't have these complex emotions. And growing up too, we lived out in the country and we never had animals inside the house too. We always had outside animals. Our dog lived outside, cats lived outside. My mom has always believed that animals belong outside and animals don't belong inside. So that was another reason why the cats we had were like, they were practically wild. They were barn cats that, would come around here and there, but they were very different. They were very different. So my exposure to pets was all, from like either farm animals or outside animals, outside pets. It's been interesting. I've learned an awful lot, man. I've learned an awful lot, but I hope that's one thing I think I hope I never get to a point where I'm not excited to learn new things about myself and about the world and about just everything. I think as soon as you're done learning and I think it's over for you.
Yeah, I'd agree for sure.
As an artist, as a person, it's you've got to be trying to learn, try to get better. I got in an argument one time with a guy that worked for me on the road, a crew. I said, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. There's no staying the same. He goes, no, you stay the same. And I said, no, I said, there's no staying the same. I said, the earth is trying to turn us all into dirt and dust nonstop. And it's trying to turn everything we've made into dirt and dust. And it will win. It will win. There is no stopping it. you and everything you ever created or did will one day be dust and dirt, but you have to fight and rage against it constantly. And it's a nonstop battle. And it's one that you have to fight. And it's one that you will lose. That's sort of the irony of life, but it's nonstop. It starts as soon as you're born. You've got to be fighting. And part of that is learning, you've got to keep your brain sharp, but also because the world is full of wonder and amazing things. And, I want to drink it all in, man. I do.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing a good job based off my observation and what you post on social media. You guys have done a lot that people would just dream about doing, just scratching the surface where you've been and what you've accomplished and experiences you've had. Is I mean, you made quite the life with your musical journey. I mean, it's amazing.
But some of that was by design. Let me tell you a story. So when we first started playing out, before we really had toured, we played with and I won't say who it is, it doesn't matter. But we played with some older guys and they had toured a lot. And I asked them about some places that they had recently been. And they said, "Oh, no, we didn't see that. No, no." And they said, "Yeah, we never really see any of that stuff. We just do the show. We're in a parking lot. We never see anything, never do anything." And I looked at Breezy and I said, "Man, I don't want that to be us." I said, "I don't want that to be us." I said, "We've got to figure out how to do this. If we're going to pass by the Grand Canyon, we we can't we can't not see the Grand Canyon,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I did early on, and I had a problem with it, as so many people do, but I quit drinking, pretty early on in our career. And I just realized that I do everything to an insane degree, right? Like if I'm into something, I do it to the point of insanity. I like to say it's passion, but it's more like a relentless obsession. Passion's too light a word for when and it's everything I get into, right? I mean, it's just it's the list can go on, and I could tell you stories that would, you'd think, God, this guy's insane. He probably needs to see a therapist. But I've learned that if I can focus it into more positive things, then I can actually, accomplish things and feel good about myself. But if I focus it into negative things, then it can destroy me. And I noticed that alcohol was starting to do that. And I, like those old guys told me, they said, "Well, we do the show, we get drunk, we wake up, we're hungover, we barely make the show the next day, and that's what we do." And I went, that was a turning point for me. I went, that's going to be me if I'm not careful. That's going to be me. And I envy people like Breezy. She can have a drink every now and then. She might have one drink a week, or if we're on the road,
Right.
she barely drinks. And when she does, she has a one cocktail, maybe two tops. Um, but I've just never been able to do that with any damn thing. Nothing in my life. I mean, nothing in my life, man.
Just
But my dad's a little bit that way too. My dad's a little bit that way too. I mean, back in his trapping days, I mean, he was obsessed with it for a while, and it made me obsessed with it because he was so into it. And guitars. Like I've remained obsessed with guitars.
how
It's
many
just,
guitars do you have?
oh man, can you see?
I see a few back here for sure.
There's, I don't know, there's 30 or 40 in this room. I got more. I'm obsessed with them. I've been collecting my whole life, and a lot of them most of them, in fact, are pawn shop guitars. They're not they're not super valuable, but they're all guitars I play. I don't have guitars that don't get played.
Right.
Um, for me, it's all about different tunings. So almost every one of them down here is in a different tuning, which is crazy in itself.
That's a lot of different tunings for sure.
Insane. Tunings I've invented, tunings I mess with, tunings various keys of similar tunings. I've got I'm just going around the room as I can try to think about it. So I've got Spanish, standard low, Vestipal, open C, then all the ones that are 3 and 4 string and different things back along that wall back there. Those are all completely different and weird. there's a Turkish instrument back there that's in a crazy tuning that's just insane. Um, then I mean it's nonstop. I'm obsessed with different tunings, and but it's like we're talking before, a string can be tuned to whatever you want it to be tuned to. It's infinite. It's as infinite as the stars in the sky, and there's magic in that.
Yeah.
You cut it in half, the halfway point's always the octave. So that's the beauty of it. Once you understand that, then it can be tuned to whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. I think that's why I was so drawn to like blues music, and when I first started coming around to it was just kind of like it wasn't like strictly math formula. These people were playing what they felt. Sometimes the tuning was out of whack, sometimes it was, a little funky or whatever, but it still got the message and the point and the feeling across. I think
When
that's where I fell in love.
sometimes that tuning is out of whack because it's actually they're pushing it, they're flattening the third so far into this West African scale. Sometimes it's tuned like that on purpose. It's uh Furry Lewis would do this. I played with some guys in North Mississippi would do this. They would tune an open tuning, but the third in their tuning would always be a little bit flat because that's just how they heard it. So when you would play it, it would sound a little bit out of tune to sort of ears that are used to hearing a perfect third in the chord,
Uh-huh.
but these guys that were just so steeped in this tradition, they like the third to be a little bit flat, and it's I love playing with that kind of stuff too, man. I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Oh, there's magic in it, there's feeling in it. If you I could pick up one of these guitars and show you, but if you play the note straight or you play it straight pentatonic, there you lose just so much of the feeling. You lose so much of the feeling. But when you flat the third, it suddenly it opens up. It's magic.
Anyway, I asked you, I said if you felt like you've done a good job like sharing the history of blues and all that. And I got this from you
Yeah.
years ago, and I knew Charlie Patton's music, but I never went down the rabbit hole until I heard like how passionate you were about this record, and I came to where were we? It was up by the Vogue and Broad Ripple, the vinyl record store up there. You did a vinyl record little show there, and we're signing these.
Yeah, any CD and vinyl.
Yep. And once you did that, I went down the rabbit hole of so much stuff, including, like I said, I knew the name, but I never really gave it the time and actually listened to the records. And now I have the whole thick box set of, 4 disc deal, a record.
Man, I was so
There,
proud.
that should answer your question. Like it worked, like you got me like in a whole new rabbit hole that I went down.
That's great, man. And that record, I was so proud of it. Do you have one of the ones with the 78 in it too?
No.
So some of them had a limited edition 78 inside it, and it was pretty cool. It was the first 78 that had been created in a lot of years, and the label fought me on. I had to go to Target and Best Buy and prove that it could be played. But we ended up on the Wikipedia for 78 records for a while. Now a bunch of people have put out 78 since then, like Jack White's done.
Here it is. Actually, here it is.
It is, yeah. So that
I forgot it was in there.
Yeah, so that 78 is it was it was the first 78 to be made. I forget and how long, and I wanted so bad to put something out on 78, and it just to me it added a whole other layer of just special. Hearing the music played on 78 just did something, it just really did. It did something. And I wish that we could still have those made, but the label kind of went out of business, and another thing bought them, and they won't let us reprint stuff. So But that's okay because I'm probably going to re-record some. And I got a new record this week coming out this year that you're going to really like because it's a very stripped down acoustic record along those lines and all recorded here at the house actually. It's really cool, and I've got some special guests on it. I forget how many Grammys are between the guests I've got on the record. I don't have any Grammys, but there's a few Grammys on the record that thanks to some special guest friends that are helping me on a few of the songs. And it's 12 songs, 7 of which I wrote, and 5 of which are either traditional old gospel or old blues songs. And I'm just turned out, man. It's going to be cool. Right now, we're trying to figure out when and how it's going to be released, but there's all kinds of stuff like that. Like, you make a record and then, for you as an artist, you want people to hear it immediately because, you're already on the next thing. An artist is only known for their last thing. So you're only as good as your last thing to people. They don't know you for the next thing. And this record, I'm so excited by. I just want people to hear it. I'm like, please listen to this record. But it takes time. There's got to be, the label, the publicity, the publishing, just everything. It goes on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
The art, you name it. And I think it's more stripped down than Front Porch Sessions was. It's on par with being as stripped down as Peyton on Patton. Peyton on Patton was recorded with 1 microphone though, so it's kind of crazy.
Right.
That's the same thing to do, but this one's recorded with 3. But it's not
major advances. 3 microphones.
But it's a really, really, really exciting and fun thing, and it sounds timeless, and I'm fired up on it, man. But I'm always writing, so I'm working on the next record. This one ain't even out yet. I'm already writing for the next record. So
yeah. Do we have a timeline on when this one drops or anything?
We really want it to be out by the fall, and that's the hope.
Okay.
Crossed. We'll see. We'll see. But it's we're starting to lose that. Like if we don't get it figured out soon, it's going to be pushed back to winter. It might happen. I don't want it to have to wait till next year, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Right. Well, I thought the last record that you put out was you have a lot in your discography, like what you've done in your years in your career. I thought it was amazing. Like as far as I don't know, it felt like full circle of everything you've learned in the recording process in the studio and how it was presented, and it was just fun, well written, and just good music.
Man, thank you. That's how I would describe it. It's like full circle. It really is. That's exactly how I would think. It's awesome you say that, because honest to God, if I was going to tell someone about that, it's even better than I would have said it. But I think that our last full length record, Dance Songs for Hard Times, was our best record we ever did. Stepping back objectively, I have spent a lifetime on this. I am a better singer. I'm a better guitar player. I'm a better writer of songs. I'm a better performer than I was when we first started making records. And one thing I'm better at also is making records. We were always a great live band, but we have figured out how to make records, and it took a long time. And part of that was I had this point in my life where I was just so obsessed with guys like Charlie Patton. I was kind of obtuse about it. I'd be like, oh, we're going to record 1 microphone because Charlie did. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. It was crazy. But I, as we've gotten, older and I've got more experience and more confident, just, and learn more about myself. Here's a simple thing that I've learned that you can, I will sing better in certain keys. So I will play around with the song until I get into a better key, and that's one thing that's made me a better singer. It's not just that I'm a better singer. It's that I've learned to put the songs into freaking keys that I'm better at singing, instead of just whatever I first wrote it in, when I was 19 years old. That's why I did. I'd be like, okay, I've got this song, wrote it here. I'm going to sing it here, and that's and no one really told me that that was a thing that you could do or that was done. No one told me that in Nashville that they might have the singer sing it in three or four keys, and then they pick the one they like. And that's a common thing that's done, and it's no one told me that. I had to learn all that stuff on my own on the road and doing it because I didn't come from big music background. I didn't come from, I don't have a famous last name. I didn't have rich daddy money that could, open doors with big wigs and stuff. I didn't have any of that. We had to get out on the road and live in a van and be homeless for years until it finally took off. And then even then, it was just little by little, one fan at a time. We never had a big song in a movie or no major label ever dumped a bunch of money into us or anything. No one ever dumped a bunch of money into us. It was always just one fan at a time, one record at a time. But we are so much better than we've ever been. And it's because, and I'm going to say something, this is going to be crazy. I've said some crazy stuff today, I know, but if
I love
if I ever feel like I'm not getting better, if I feel like I'm getting worse, I'm going to quit.
I don't know
So,
how you could do that.
so that's how I've said this for years. If I ever get to the point where I feel like I'm not getting better, I'm getting worse, then I think it's time to walk away, get
Yeah.
out of the way, let someone else do it. So if you see me up on that stage, it's because I believed that I got up that morning and I was better at doing it than I was the day before. And I am like my 19-year-old self. I could take that dude in a fight. I'm a better singer. I'm a better writer of songs, better performer, better guitar player. I know more about music theory. I know more about the recording process, the music business. I am just better by every metric. So, there's fans that, every now and then someone will say, "Oh man, your first record's your best record," blah, blah, blah. And I think, no, it's not. You're an idiot. There's no way. Like you like that because it's the first record you heard from us, and maybe you have some kind of like memory about that or whatever. But objectively speaking, it is not our best record we've ever done. There are songs on there that are great, and I hope to someday revisit some of those songs. That's a goal I have. I want to go back and redo some songs we did. Maybe do live versions of them because we've woodshedded them and played them on the road so many times throughout the years that they've just gotten better. They've morphed into a better song. And I want to do that. And I mean, BB King recorded "The Thrill's Gone" who knows how many times. How many times did John Lee Hooker record "Boom Boom"?
Yeah.
Um, it's he it's I feel like that with me. I want to be able to do that and revisit some of these tunes because they're my song, and I know I can do them better, and I think they deserve better. I do. I think some of these songs deserve better, and because I had I think even you go back to like those early days and we had a lot of promise. There was uh, a lot of promise, but I think we live up to it now, live and on record. I do. I think we live up to that promise live and on record, and I uh, I know that there's, like every now and then people argue. They'll say, well, every band's first two records are the best and then they suck. Well, I think maybe sometimes that's true. And I think what happens is a band, it comes together and they're very passionate for two records. And then beyond that, they lose their passion. They either have other hobbies or interests, or the band starts to grow apart or whatever. But this has been my damn thing, and it's I'm still passionate about it. I'm still trying to tweak it. I had a guitar tech. So someone it got back to me. The guitar tech was kind of talking about me and complaining about working for me, and they said that he was saying I'm always messing with the guitars, always messing with the sound, always tweaking it. And I'm like, well, damn right I am, because I'm trying to get it better. I think it can be better. I'm always trying new things. It's like, is this amp better than this amp? Is this pickup better than this pickup? I've got guitars. I've changed the pickups in them 5 or 6 times. because I wanted to try to get the perfect sound. I'm trying to whittle it down to the perfect sound. And some people may not understand that. They go, well, why the hell? Like that sounds like that's crazy. But not everybody can even hear the difference, right? But I can. So these are things that I'm constantly trying to tweak. I'm constantly trying to be better. It's a constant quest. And I hope, man, I hope it never ceases. I hope I never, ever, if I ever, oh, I hope I never stop trying to be better.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a good point. I mean, I even if you don't do it publicly, I'm sure obviously there's no way you would ever stop playing music. You'll be on your front porch by yourself at least. Like there's no way that's coming out of you.
I think that I will always remain trying to learn. I learn like one thing I do is I try to learn something new on the guitar every day. At least one thing. I make it a point to learn something new on the guitar every day. So at the very least, as long as you're doing that, that one thing more than you did. I'm more obsessed now with writing than I ever have been. Like when I was a kid, I was obsessed with like virtuosic guitar playing and all that stuff. And the older I get, the more I realize that actually that's not that hard to do. The hardest thing to do in music is to write a good song. And you know, like I'll meet these people that go, "Oh, I write songs every day." And I'm like, "Well, you don't write good songs every day because nobody does." Um, and a good song is interesting because for the most part, a good song is actually simple.
Yeah.
Kalashnikov, the guy that invented the AK-47, he said he has a quote about inventing, about creating, and he said, "It's easy to make something hard. It's hard to make something easy." And that's very true of music too, because it's very easy to craft a new song with a ton of notes and a ton of chords that haven't been done before. It's very hard to create a new song that's never been done before with a new melody and a new pattern and a new way of doing things, but with three chords or two chords or one chord. That's hard. And that's where usually the magic happens.
Yeah. The same staple as three chords in the truth.
Yep. It's because all the best songs are generally three chords, maybe four. And the fourth chord, you have to really like convince me there's a good reason to have that fourth chord in there. A lot of the music that I play and listen to are one chord songs. I love one chord boogie blues songs. I think it's some of my favorite stuff. I love it. I have a lot of songs that are two chords with maybe an implied third chord or but not an actual real change. There's a lot that happens in blues a lot. But music, it's hard to make something simple. But blues, if I was going to teach someone to play blues music, I was telling someone, like just like last week where I was talking with this, I said I would first say, instead of learning all the blues scales and all that stuff, I'd say, no, we're going to learn to play blues on one chord. You pick one chord, and then we're going to play blues on that because it's more about feel than anything else. And the older I get, the more I realize that, and finding that feel is hard to do because it's not very straight. Bluegrass is very straight and blues is very behind the beat. And it's easy to find, or easier to find it when it's slow, right? But when it's fast, it's very hard to find it. And for a lot of people anyway. And I'm obsessed with that feel, that loose, sticky, deep pocket feel. And the older I get, the deeper I want it to be. I'm like, I'm so far behind the beat anymore now, man. It's like I'm to play with. I had a fellow that opened up for us on the last run, and a cool guy, and we were just playing backstage a little bit, and he goes, "Man," he goes, you play so far behind the beat, it's hard to even follow." And I said, "Well, try to be my drummer." I said, "But go and listen to the old guys. That's what they're doing." I said, "Go listen to some of the guys that are still alive doing it. Taj Mahal, listen to Kebmo, listen to Buddy Guy, listen to, some of these fellas, listen to if you pay attention real hard to some of your favorite music throughout time, they were deep pockets way behind that beat." And it's if you watch, you play the same beat, but you deepen that feel, you sticky it up, you make them pockets deeper, and you watch the whole room come alive. And most of the audience don't know what you did different, but somehow it just does something deep inside. You feel it,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
hard to explain. It's hard to explain it. I've had I've had drummers that didn't understand it. I've had drummers. I've had people that want to be my drummer, but they couldn't understand it. I couldn't make them feel it. I couldn't make them feel it. It's in my opinion, it's more important than all the notes in the world. And the
Yeah.
older I realized that. When I was younger, I didn't understand it. And I especially didn't know how to articulate it. I'd be like, well, that just doesn't feel right. I don't know why. And I'd tell a drummer, be like, I don't know. Like, I just, they would be playing it correctly in terms of sheet music, playing it all right out, playing it, you could play with a metronome. It's all correct, but it's not correct. Um, it's that very, it's more human, more
Or
soulful behind the beat feel, and I love it. There's a lot of blues drummers have it. Uh, the if Levon Helm of the band, he had it. You go listen to Zeppelin music. Zeppelin drums are way behind the beat. They're righteous. They're incredible, super super sticky behind the beat stuff. And um, I just I love that stuff. I love music that swings hard. I love music that is behind the beat. It's um, it's not easy to it's not easy to explain it. Even to some musicians, they don't understand
yeah, I'm intrigued. Like
it.
I don't know. That's the whole reason I have this podcast. I just like music that much, and I understand like how important music is to the world. And I don't know. I could never play the blues. I mean, I guess you could if you simplify it at the like bare minimum. But the stuff that you're doing out there is just it's mind blowing, really. I mean, I don't know how many shows I've been to of yours, and I can think of like 3 or 4 different people that never heard of you that I purposely like, dude, you got to come see Rev do his thing. You got to come. Just come to the show, see what's going on, and they're totally just like blown away. Whether it's at the state fair in Indiana or whatever, a show down anywhere, even Louisville or wherever, and they just go away like thinking, I would have never gave that music a chance. And then seeing it live just blew them away. Like that was their new thing. Now they're telling their friends.
That's awesome, man. Well, thanks for bringing people out. And
Yeah,
we're gonna be bringing people out to a show this summer. A
yeah, man.
lot.
Picking in the backwoods. Hey, I got this is pretty cool. I'm sure you've seen this image.
Yeah, that's cool.
The lady that works at Hoosier Trapper, she does painting, and she painted this up for me. I told her I need a coyote with a
Really?
banjo.
Wow, that's incredible.
So yeah, she does good work.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But yeah, we're excited, man. 20 bands, 2 days. Of course, you're headlining the Friday night, and that's that's amazing in itself, right there.
It's cool. And we've played this spot before, another festival a few years back. It is an incredible place to see a show. It's outdoors and intimate at the same time. It's really cool.
Yeah,
And there's a lake there. I'm hoping to be doing some fishing before the show. Maybe I would love to be able to get a little fishing
they
in before.
they say fishing is okay to go with. They just want you to throw them back. So
Yeah, yeah,
no swimming. Insurance won't have it. Everyone
yeah.
stay out of the water. But yeah, I'm bringing a couple poles myself, so we'll see. They got
Last time I was there,
they got
I was
zip
flying.
lining and all kinds of stuff out there.
Yeah, they got zip lines. They've got it's fun, man. It's a cool spot. It really
Yeah,
is. It's a beautiful place. And I mean, this county is beautiful anyway. It's fun that this show is gonna be close to home. It's fun that where it's at. There's just it's got a lot going for it.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the show you're talking about that you played, it was a Muddy Roots deal. I'm assuming, unless you played it multiple times that I don't know about, but
Mhm.
I was at that one and I just remember I went by myself and I didn't know anyone there. And I just remember being there and being like, man, this is amazing. I can't believe I'm like, didn't have someone with me to share or talk to about it. And like, 'cause, you hear the word festival, you're thinking minimum 10,000 people, up to 25,000, depending on what the show is. And it's like, you can't even enjoy the music. It's,
It's tough. Yeah.
it's really hard. But when you pull it into this intimate setting, we're only doing limited ticket. Like for anyone listening, it's under 1,000 tickets easily. Uh, so yeah, you're going to be able to have a good time, and no matter where you're at, you're right there in the action. You're right there on stage. Enjoy the music. Bring a lawn chair. Bring your own cooler. Bring whatever. Or just
In
keep
the
it down home.
in
Keeping it
one of the most
simple.
underrated places on the planet, Brown County, Indiana, place with a ton of music history. And then, the time of year is great. It's got a lot going for it, man. I'm telling you, and it will sell out. We've already sold it out before headline and um, so people should get their tickets as soon as they can.
Yeah. Yep. It's gonna be one for remember. I'm super excited. This is something I dreamed about as a kid. Like, you sit there and draw up your own music festival or something as a kid. And I pitched an idea to, a guy that believed in you know, that it could work. And they said, go for it. And I'm like, all right, we're going for it. So we got to have the hometown heroes in there. That's for sure. So yeah, I'm excited. Uh, it's going to be a good time for sure. A lot of stress, but well worth it.
Yeah, it's harder to put on a show like that than people think, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I kind of knew what I was getting myself into, but you know, you figure venues, 20 different artists, places to stay, insurance, security. We want to make sure everyone's safe, volunteers, got to take the green room, get some food
Mhm.
trucks in there, make sure everyone's fed and having a good time, you know, all that stuff. But we're going to do it right and we're going to have a good time. So that's the plan. I,
Well,
what'd you say?
I'm excited about it.
Oh, I know. I can't wait to see what you guys do. You guys always do something wild.
It's be close to home, so I can bring whatever guitars I want. That's for sure.
Yeah. Um, I brought up to you, you rolled into, I don't even know if I should say this on here. We could always cut it out if it's not. How you rolled up in there to Bean Blossom in that Coupe de Ville.
Yeah.
I was
Yep.
like, we should do something like that.
That'd
Or
be cool.
reenact the
My Cadillac's in the shop right now. It has been for way too long. Uh, I've got basically a nephew of a friend working on it. He's had it way too long, but it's supposed to be getting finished next week. If not, I might lose my mind because and I really wanted it. It was supposed to be done literally, I think it was supposed to be done Saturday. It'll drop dead, like promise, no more, done Saturday, but it's not. So um that Cadillac, man, I got it for a real good deal, and I just love that thing, man. I've always my whole life I wanted to have a Cadillac, and Breezy and I've had so much fun. We really kind of got it for a music video, and because I had an idea for a music video, and I'm like, Breezy, I need a Cadillac. She's like, well, you can't buy a Cadillac for music video. We don't have that money. And I said, no, no, no. I said, I really don't even need a run. I said, it's gonna be towed behind a tow truck. And she's like, what the hell does that even mean? You can't do it.
what?
Then I got obsessed with it, and I ended up some people in town, they sold me theirs that they were trying to sell for less than half price, which was really cool. And we were able to do it have it for the video, and then just have a car that, we've had a lot of fun ever since then. It's the one that's in the Pour Until Payday video. We've used it for lots of different, videos, and
Yep.
it's in the beginning of Ways and Means. It rolls up beginning of Ways and Means, and the video
That's a
for that.
great video, by the way.
I
I
think
thought,
that video might be our best one ever. I love that video. And if you want to like that video, it's probably closer to what was in my brain for what that was like the end result than any video we ever did. I
yeah,
think that one is the most exactly. It's like they downloaded my brain and we were able to put it out there. Wait, the video for Ways and Means is like my brain was downloaded.
yep.
So
Jim,
I
whoever,
always have these crazy ideas, and I told them, I said, well, the video is going to be in a laundromat, and they're like, what? That sounds boring. I'm like, no, it won't be boring. It's gonna be awesome. And they're like, well, tell us about it. And I said, well, all the colors will be the same. And they're like, what? What do you mean?
yeah, the color scheme was great.
I'm like, trust me, all the colors will be the same. And they're like, well, what colors? And I said, well, it's going to depend on the laundromat. It's going to match the laundromat. And they're like, what? Every time I said more about it, they're like, this sounds terrible. Like, what are you talking about? And um, I had my buddy Jim, who has helped me with so much in my life. In the We Deserve a Happy Ending music video, I set him on fire. That's how good of
That's
a
a,
friend.
that's a great another
But
hilarious video.
I drew up on the front of all the dryers. I wanted them to look like they were like kind of like, real psychedelic, spinning like a pinwheel, crazy. And we were trying to figure out how to do it. So he made these little motors. He bought this stuff on Amazon and made little motors. And I drew up the things, and we had them printed all on foam core, so that, and then he made them where they're on the front of the dryer, so it looked like the front of the dryers were spinning with that
Spinning,
psychedelic.
yeah.
And we matched the colors. It was green and yellow because that was the colors of the tables and stuff in the laundromat. So once we found the location, we knew the colors, and then we had to go out, and it was a mix of buying stuff, using stuff we had, and then actually buying bulk stuff from like Goodwill and the Goodwill outlet, and dyeing it so it would all be the same color. And so that was a crazy thing. And then we had all these dancers and people that kind of choreographed little things throughout all of it, and it
Where
just
was that laundromat at? Where's that located?
on the east side of Bloomington. And they let me close it up. I said, look, I want to come in the middle of the night so it doesn't mess with your business too much. But they let us completely close the place off, and they didn't charge us anything. It was a miracle,
Oh man.
and it was the perfect thing. It looks like the laundromats I remember when I was a kid. Like that's what I wanted. Like I had this idea, a look in my head of the old school laundromat tables, the old school signs. Like when I walked in, I couldn't believe it. It was like we
In
had
the
gone back.
carts.
Yeah, the carts were perfect. They were
Yeah.
it looked like we had gone back in time and had found the laundromat that was in my brain. It was like I had dreamed it and it came to be true. It was just, oh my goodness, that was a miracle. The next closest video, probably Devils Look Like Angels, with the little girl Elsie singing all my parts. That was pretty close to my brain too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that happened. Like I could go through a lot of videos and I could be like, well, this was close. We Deserve a Happy
Or
Ending was pretty close too. With that fire, with him coming out on fire was pretty. Even Pour Until Payday, it was not quite exactly what I had envisioned. I don't want to get into knocking the people that helped me edit it and stuff, but it just wasn't quite the way I had kind of tried to direct it and everything. So, but
yeah,
all these video ideas, I had someone say like, who comes up with these ideas for you? Like what? I'm like, me. And they're like, well, they cost a bunch of money. I'm like, no, I don't have a bunch of money. I asked my friends and family in the community to help me do it. I'm like, for Pour Until Payday, we had to close down 2 city blocks in both Nashville, Indiana and Bloomington, Indiana. And the towns let me do it. I'm just lucky that I get support like that from the community and from, people around here. But I've had, um, you know, the they let me do that in Bloomington for Devils Look Like Angels. We closed down streets. We closed down whole blocks for Pour Until Payday. All the people in the barn for Clap Your Hands were just friends of mine.
Yep.
Everybody that comes out of my house in the We Deserve a Happy Ending video, with the exception of maybe two or three, would have been there if we just had a barbecue. You know, they would have been there anyway. Like literally my best friends and family. Pour Until Payday, there was, 400 volunteers that showed up to help us. And I think the town charged me like $50 or something. Like it was nothing.
Awesome.
We had to shut down streets and for Raise Little Hell, that video, and we had 500 volunteers show up to help us that day. I mean, it's been insane. The support we get from fans and from friends and from the community has allowed us to do things on this level with the hardly any budget. No one wants to give me any money to do these things, and now it's gotten worse. Labels they go, man, no one wants to see music videos anymore. They want to see TikToks, so make TikTok reels. And I'm just like, man, I still kind of like these music videos. I think they're fun.
Yeah.
I hope to continue to do it.
I don't know if it's our age or what, but that's definitely, I can't, I mean, that's what I should be doing with this whole podcast stuff. I should be making reels and, I do what I can. I have another job. This is for fun. It's supposed to be. So,
well, I like a more completed art piece, right? I like a finished record. I like the finished music video. I like a song that I crafted. These little like snippets of things that trying to be silly or trying too hard or just kind of noodle on the guitar a little bit like that doesn't quite do it for me. That feels like work. And I do as much of it as I can stomach, and I should do more of it. They're always telling me I need to do more of it, but it just feels like, honestly, it's like try hard stuff. Most of the things that like really do well on TikTok and on Instagram I think, is people that just try too hard. And the try hards. I look at them, I go, this is a try hard. That's a try hard. I don't like it. To me, it just seems like it's fake. It's not real. If it was real, they wouldn't have to do that, and
right.
and it also kind of feels like, it doesn't feel like the way art should be. Art should come more naturally when it comes. You can't force art to come. If you try to, it will stop. It will not come. You have to really open yourself up and be ready for it. And if you're sitting around like going, oh, I got to create, I got to do this, I got to, it's like, nah, that's not how it works. I'm constantly making music and working on myself and waiting for those times when the songs fall from the sky and they come to you, and it you just can't force it.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to do the thing. There's lots of people that give little guitar tutorials on there and stuff. It's just like, that's not my thing. I'm not a teacher. I'm not I'm not. I taught when I was 13. I don't like doing it. I don't have the patience for it. I don't want to teach. I'm a musician. I'm an artist. I'm a songwriter. I'm not that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Well, it's working for you, so keep it up.
I'm gonna try. Hopefully the world doesn't leave me behind with their reels and yeah.
You get lost in the algorithm, then disappear. Well, man, I appreciate you being on. This has been great. This is by far the latest podcast interview I've ever done.
Well, I appreciate you accommodating me. I've had a crazy few weeks, so
Yeah, no problems for sure. Um, yeah, I'll catch you on the road. If not,
let's do it again when the record comes out or something. Let's get back together and let's do this again.
yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love to. Until then, everyone grab your tickets to Pickin in the Backwoods. Check out Rev and all his social media, websites, TikToks, whatever.
All that stuff. We got all that crap.
All that good stuff. More importantly, go see a live show, and that's
Right.
the best way to support.
And if you can see Pickin in the
Grab a
back,
record, enjoy yourself at the show. That's the best thing you can do.
yeah, absolutely. Come to Pickin the Backwoods. That's what we should do.
Yes.
See it there.
All right, man. Well, take care and thanks again.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.